Hey Knights! So, this is the last two chapters of this book, uh, fan fiction for I Landed in the World of Black Butler. And then I will add up some new playlists. Okay, so chapter 23. 23. Chapter 28. Steele's point of view. It had almost been a week since the ball. Celine was sitting in my study with me talking, and she was about 4 months pregnant, which showed a little. Sebastian had been a little overbearing when it came to anyone that was around Celine, meaning I was just about the only one that he relaxed around. But Celine acted a little odd around him when he had that rose in his jacket pocket. But I didn't give too much thought to it. Celine, you should relax a little and go for a walk in the garden, she says before giving me a smile. Before I had a chance to say anything, Sebastian walks in with the platter that he delivered letters on. Celine stands up as to leave, and I give her that look. Celine, please stay, I say, and she gives a small sigh before sitting back down, her hands rubbing her stomach a little, which she had been doing for the last week or two, whenever she seemed stressed, which is often with Sebastian hovering around her. I rip up the letter from Alois Transy and look over at Celine, who had a small frown on her face. I didn't understand what was troubling her so much, but she shakes her head a little before standing. Where do you think you're going? I ask as I stand as well. To my room. I'm starting to get a little tired, so I was going to take a nap, Celine says before giving us a smile. I nod my head and let her leave before looking at Sebastian. Sebastian, what has been bothering Celine the last few weeks? She hardly stays in the same room as you for more than an hour or two, I say, before looking over at my butler, who had a small frown on his face. She doesn't like the rose I have, so she refuses to stay in the same room as it. I have to put it out of her sight before she even lets me into her room. Don't worry so much about it, young master. I will talk to her about it, Sebastian says before giving a small bow. We have been doing some research on Alois and his family. When we travel, we leave Celine behind only because she said she didn't really want to go. And it made Sebastian and myself more relaxed because we didn't have to protect her. Celine's point of view. I was in my room when the door opens, and I turn a little to see Sebastian, a worried look on his face. What is wrong, Sebastian? I asks, and he walks over to me. Celine, we are going to the Transy Manor, and I would like to have you come with us. I don't know why you hate this flower so much, but please, put that aside and come with the young master and myself. I would feel better if you did, he says, before grabbing my hand and placing small kisses on my cheek. It was nice to have Sebastian and ask and be so understanding, because normally he was right, no matter what, and I was wrong. I give a little sigh before nodding my head. He smiles before pulling me closer to him, and I lay my head on his chest, enjoying the feeling of being close to my husband, because I hadn't really been in the last week or two. I'm sorry I've been so stubborn. Please forgive me, I say before looking up at him with sad, pleading eyes. He chuckles a little before leaning closer and kissing me. I forgive you. Now let's change your dress, and I want to cut your hair so it's a little shorter, because you keep fussing with it in your sleep, Sebastian says as he pulls me over to a chair. I was cutting Celine's hair when a thought occurred to me. I changed her into a demon, but she had yet to mark me. Once I was done, I pick her up and carry her over to the bed, where I lay her down before sitting by her. Celine, I need you to do something for me, I say before leaning over her a little. She nods her head before looking into my eyes. I need you to pull out a little of your demon power so you can give me a mark like the one I gave you, I say in a calm voice. She looks a little confused before sitting a little, making me lean away from her. You need me to do what? Why would you need me to do such a thing? She asks, confusion on her face and worry in her eyes. I chuckle a little before picking her up and setting her in my lap. To prove that I'm yours in case another demon, like the one at the Transy Manor, tries to go after me, I say, and I see a spark of anger in her eyes before she nods. I watch her in amazement as she pulls out a little power, and I kiss her, making her go limp in my arms, before she kisses down my neck to where it meets my shoulder, before I feel sharp pain dig in. I hold her closer to me as my world started to spin a little, and she pulls back, looking at me with worry and love. I gently kiss her, tasting my blood on her lips and making me lose myself in the feeling of her lips pressed to mine. After a few more seconds pass, she pulls away and puts her head on my chest, making me worry that I pushed her too far. I'm fine, Sebastian. I was already sleepy before that. Let me take a little nap, she mumbles before falling asleep. I chuckle again before standing, then turning to put her in bed. Once I was sure she was comfortable, I walked to the bathroom and looked into the mirror to see that she had marked me just like I had her. It was a nice feeling to know that I was hers alone, and she was mine alone. Celine's point of view. When I got up, I was alone, but Sebastian had left out a dress for me to wear to the trancing manor. I sigh a little as I changed, then brush out my now shorter hair, meaning it was a little past my shoulders now, rather than past my waist. I walked down to the steel study and was about to knock when hands were around me, pulling me back a little before the door opened. Sebastian, is that Celine in your arms? Seal asks as he and a few other men walk out. Yes, young master. She was about to knock, and I knew that your meeting was over. I didn't want her to get hurt as your guests were leaving, Sebastian says from behind me. Seal nods his head and walks over to me, making Sebastian let me go so he could show the guest out. Celine, I need you with me today. I hope you don't mind coming with us back to the Trancy Manor, Seal says, making me shake my head no. It wasn't long before we walked down to the carriage where I sat with Seal. Celine, stay in eyesight of Sebastian when we are there. I don't need you to follow me around in case something happens, Seal says as we travel. I understand, Seal, I say. It didn't take much longer for us to arrive, and I get out after Seal does. Claude's point of view. My young master was talking to Seal, but I didn't listen much, as I gave Sebastian a small look to see if he was still holding on his end of the deal. My master is about to walk away when he noticed something, or someone, behind Seal. Who is that? He asks as he points at the woman. I look at her up and down a little, shocked to see a young woman with Seal, and she was standing by Sebastian, a small frown on her face, and she looks at him pointing at her. Pointing is rude and you shouldn't do it, she says in a small voice, but I recognized it as the one from the masked ball that the young master had. She was the girl that was in the crow costume and had danced with Sebastian, but not myself. She's no one you need to worry over, Seal says before looking back at her, making her nod her head a little. We lead them out to the back garden where there is a chessboard made of stone set up. I couldn't take my eyes off the girl that was with them and couldn't help but look her over. She had shoulder-length raven black hair, crimson eyes, and pale skin. She was in a dark blue dress that had baby blue roses on it, and she had white gloves on her hands. I was waiting for orders, but was a little shocked to see the girl lean in close to Sebastian, whispering something in his ear that I missed because I had asked for my orders. The smile on his face made me mad, because I wanted that girl just like I wanted Seal's soul. Sebastian's point of view. Seal gave me my orders, and Celine leans down as if to say something. Sebastian, please be careful. I love you, she whispers, and I give her a smile that I would only give to her. I look over at Claude, who had anger flashing through his eyes before responding to his master's orders. Stay where I can see you, I whisper to her as I stand, and she nods her head before placing a hand on her stomach, making me a little worried about her. I was worried that this might be too much excitement for her to handle, but at the same time I wanted to prove myself to her in a fight. It was an odd feeling, but I was sure it was because of her marking me earlier. Some of my worries and fears were eased by it, but at the same time they were made worse. I faced the five before giving a small smile and holding up 3 silver knives, but kept an eye on Celine, who was sitting next to Seal at the moment. She would be fine up there as long as Claude and Aloise stayed away from her. Celine's point of view. That creepy guy shows up, and I shrink back a little before giving a small shiver. He was still really weird, and I wanted nothing to do with him at all. I had little worry as Sebastian fights because I knew he wouldn't get too hurt, and I ignored that man's rambling because I didn't want to listen to him at all. I was almost in a trance watching Sebastian move because it was so grateful, and he looked almost happy. I didn't make a move when he takes down the triplets and hold back my laugh at his bad joke after he fixed his jacket. It made me a little mad that woman was trying to hurt my Sebastian, and I fought off the need to run down there and help him, only because I would get in Sebastian's way as well as put my baby in danger. They stopped the fight for tea time, and I could feel 2 sets of eyes on myself, and Seal making me a little uncomfortable sitting by him. I knew that Sebastian was watching me as he worked, but he also was a little playful when it came to the way he threw food at Claude. Claude's point of view. I was thinking about the flavor of souls and looking up at Seal as well as the girl. I don't like the way you're looking at my young master, Sebastian says after something hits my face. He then keeps talking before saying something that catches my interest. Don't look at my lady like that as well. She isn't going to be touched by the likes of you ever again, he says, making me shiver a little under his cold tone. Once I was done making my sweets for the young master, I go to put one down in front of the girl, whose chair has been pulled closer to Seal's, and Sebastian gives me a hate-filled look. Lady, would you care for something I have made? I ask, secretly hoping that she would say yes to me. No, thank you. I can't have a lot of sleeps and would like what Sebastian has made, she says, a small smile on her face that I can't tell if it was fake or not. My lady, you are too kind, Sebastian says, before giving a small bow and placing his sweets in front of her, as well as his master. I walked back over to mine, a little mad, and was annoyed by his antics of getting me to feed him. Seal, what is your female friend's name? I see she has had a ring on her hand, and was wondering what she means to you, my master asks as we ignore our uninvited guest. I could see her lips moving, but didn't hear her say a thing, and it was hard from the way I was sitting to read what she had said. I look at Sebastian, a small smile on his face as he leans closer to the girl. My name is Celine, she finally says, when Sebastian is a hair's breadth away from her face, and she smiles kindly up at him before nodding her head to something he asked her. I want to know just what she means to them, so I could have her if it means hurting him. Celine is my guest and has been living at my manor for almost a year now. Her and her husband help me on my cases, so I don't mind her living with me, Seal says as he gives a small nod to Celine, who is blushing lightly. Sebastian's point of view. I told him it was all right to give them half the truth, because I knew that Claude and Alois would keep asking questions. Sebastian leans in and asked me if I was feeling all right, because I hardly had any of his cake, but I was fine, to be honest. I wanted to go home, knowing that Seal was going to kill that boy, and I didn't like the way Claude was looking at me. Once we are done with tea, I sit back next to Seal on his left, like before, and lay my head on his shoulder, making him smirk a little, as we get ready to watch Sebastian in his fight again. I turn my head away and put my hands over my ears. As Claude pulls out the sword, I knew it was going to be done by the look on Sebastian's face. Alois walks over and sits by Seal on his other side before talking to him but he was looking at me. Celine, what a pretty name. Perhaps you will play a game with me later? He asks, making me shiver a little at the look in his eyes. Seal puts himself between us more and asks for a tour of the manor. Celine, please stay here, Seal says, and I nod my head, not wanting to see what he does next, because it breaks my heart a little to know that Seal was able to kill that boy so easily. Not long after Seal had left, I see Sebastian stuck in the wires that were all around him, and stand for my place. My lady, please don't wander off, Sebastian says, and I gave a small nod as I jumped down from my place, so I was on the grass by the board. Hannah steps in my way of helping Sebastian, and I give her a sly smile before jumping over her and landing silently behind Sebastian, cutting the wires with a knife that I had hidden away earlier. You shouldn't do things like that, Sebastian scolded me as Claude and Hannah look me over. I know, but it makes me uneasy to see you in such a position, Sebastian, I say in a soft voice, letting a little worry through which makes him nod his head. I was careless, though, because there were wires around me now, and Sebastian moves quickly, so I was in his arm before any of them cut into me. Careless, my lady, Sebastian says in my ear, and Claude begins to tell us about how the wire was like threads of a spider. I feel a wire cut into me near my stomach, where Sebastian wasn't protecting it, and let a little whimper of pain go, causing both Celine and Claude to stop what they were doing to look at me. Celine, Sebastian yells as he pulls me closer to him and looking me over the best he can. He had an angry look on his face when he sees my dress torn, but nothing but a small shallow cut on me. Let her out, Claude. She has nothing to do with this, Sebastian says as he turns a little. Claude nods his head as he looks me over. Why did she get in the way, then? He asks, and I shake my head a little. She's a little attached to me, I suppose, Sebastian says, a sly smile on his face as he looks down at my stomach before leaning closer to me. I hadn't realized that my face was bleeding until Sebastian licks the blood from my face, making his eyes flash fuchsia before going back to normal. The clashing of swords is heard, and they both give a small nod, as if agreeing that the duel between them was on hold to stop the two children from hurting themselves more. Sebastian pulls me behind him as we run, and I was a little worried about seeing Seal hurt someone because he was a child. Before I ran into the room, Sebastian puts a hand over my eyes, and I close them, trusting him that I don't want to see what is about to happen, but flinch a little when I hear Alois' choking breaths. I didn't want to hear what was happening, but couldn't help to hear. I open my eyes to see Seal hitting at Sebastian as he tries to get out of his hold before I feel hands on me pulling me back from where I was standing. I go to yell, but hands were over my mouth, and then pain was in the back of my head before everything goes back. Sebastian's point of view. I see someone behind Celine, and they knock her out. Celine, Seal asks, a little shocked that they were taking her away in front of us. Claude, she is coming home with us, I say, but he doesn't look at me at all. Yes, she will, he says, and I dance my way over to where she was unconscious in one of the triplets' arms. I was upset that they would do that to her. Sebastian, she'll be staying here in her new home, Claude says, and the triplets take her off before I have a chance to get to her. I was so mad at them for taking what is mine. Her blood calls out to all of us because her soul is so pure. I'm surprised that you would let such a thing walk around so unguarded like that. She will be taken care of well, Claude says, and I couldn't do a thing because of the young master struggling in my arms to get free. But I wasn't sure if it was to get Celine back or to kill Aloise. Either way, I couldn't let him go, no matter how badly I wanted to get my wife. I would have to come back for her later, with a small hope that they wouldn't hurt her or try to make a deal with her, because she couldn't make a deal for her soul, but could for our unborn child's. I shake my head as I leave, knowing that Celine wasn't stupid enough to make a deal with them. Claude's point of view. I had the girl now, and would soon have Steele's soul. Alois was dying, but I didn't care about that. I got what I wanted, and that was all that mattered in the end. The smell of the girls' souls was calling to me, but I bandaged my young master up before putting him in bed, then walking up to my room where Celine had been placed. I wanted to look her over before doing anything to her, and mending her wounds would be my excuse. When I open the door, I find her sitting up, looking around with fear in her eyes, so I light a candle for her, and she shrinks back from me. Where's Tilson Sebastian? She asks, not looking at me, but at the spiders in the room, fear in her eyes. Gone back to the Phantom Hive Manor. You fainted, so my young master would offer you a place for the... I say, but she jumps from the bed, walking slowly back to the window, as if ready to jump out of it. Lies! She screams, as she feels behind her for the latch. I rush over, pinning her to the window, taking both her hands and putting them over her head. You shouldn't yell, because you might wake my young master, I say before leaning closer to her still bleeding face, and lick the blood away. It tasted just about as good as Seal's did, but there was something wrong with it. I pull back to see her lips move a little, and she looks around the room, fear more present in her eyes than before, as the spider comes closer to her, and I can feel her shiver in my hold. Are you afraid of spiders, my lady? I ask as I put my lips near her neck, kissing it until I get to a point that feels like there is a scar there. I pull her dress down a little to see what looks like fang marks, meaning she has been claimed by a demon as his bride. I hiss a little, and she shrinks back more. Please let me out of this room, she sobs, and I feel the need to make her happy, even if another demon has marked her. I would kill that demon and take her as my own. Yes, we can. Please calm down, Celine, I say as I lead her out of her room and down to the kitchen, where she leans over a sink before throwing up. It was rather unladylike, but she didn't seem to care. I watch her as she relaxes a little, but a hand was placed on her stomach. But I don't think it much of it, seeing as how she was just sick. I'll be leaving now, she says in a stronger voice, and I couldn't help the little laugh that slipped out. You will be staying until my young master is awake. He was the one who wanted you, I say as I hold out my hand, hoping she would willingly take it. She slaps my hand away from her before looking around the room, a little uncertain where she really was. I was about to grab her and pull her away when the others walk into the room and look her over. That's the girl Phantom Hive has been protecting, right? Hannah asks as she walks over to her. Celine looks them over before letting Hannah touch her as she looks over her wounds. Hannah, get her cleaned up before putting her in bed near the young master's room. Once he is awake tomorrow, you are take her right to him, I say, before watching the two women leave the room. I was upset that my new prize was going off with another demon, and gave Hannah a look that said not to try making a deal with her. Hannah's point of view. This girl was shaking as I led her to a room by the young master's. I didn't understand until she walked in a wide circle to avoid the spiders on the wall. I'll make sure there are no spiders in your room, dear, I say as I pat her hand, which makes her relax a little. True to my word, the moment we get into her room, I walk in and clear out all the spiders and any webs that were there. She walks in relaxed, and when I tell her the room is clean. May I ask, as I point to the wound on her stomach? She shakes her head a little before standing up. I can clean it myself, she says in a stubborn tone. I give a small sigh before walking over to where all the bandages were. If that is what you truly wish to do, I say before turning to give her a smile, but she was over by the window looking at it. You shouldn't stand there. You will get hurt if you fall out, and Claude will be mad at me if you got hurt, I say as I walk slowly over to her. She shakes her head a little before sitting on the chair that was by the window, that she opened. I want to go home. Why is he keeping me here? She asks, not looking at me at all. I finally get over to her, and she lets me help her up and take her dress off. I hold back the gasp when I see that she looks a little plump in the middle, and she puts her hands around her waist as if hugging it. Don't tell him you saw this, she whispers before taking a small step back from me. I sigh as I clean where she was hurt. I'm not going to say a word about it, I say in a soft, calm voice, before looking up at her face. The cut there was bleeding a little still, and as I look over her waist and stomach, I noticed a few small scars, as if she had already gotten hurt there in the past. "What are you trying to hide from Claude?" I asked, wanting to get this girl to talk, so I could maybe make a deal with her for her soul, because it was rather pure. "Nothing. Everything. I don't have to answer to him, because he isn't my husband, and I would very much like to go back to him at the manor. He must be worried sick about me," she says, before pulling back from me and putting her dress back on, as if nothing had happened. I was going to ask her something else, but Timber walks in with his brothers before walking over to me and whispering that Claude was coming to check up on the girl. "What is your husband's name? We can make a deal so you can go home," I say, making the triplets look at me in shock and fear. Claude may have ordered them not to make a deal with him, but not me. She turns to look at me with cold eyes, like she had done this before. "I will make no deal with the demon," she spits out, before walking back over to the chair by the window, looking at it. I could hear them whispering behind me, as if I was human. Truth be told, I think the triplets are a little funny when they talk, but the sound of the door opening stops all talk in the room. What are you for doing still in here?" Claude asks as he walks into the room. I shake my head and give a small sigh, wanting nothing more than to be out of the spiders-filled house with Sebastian and Seal, even if Seal was going to be taken from him soon. "You told us to look after her, and she refused to let me tend to her wounds," Hannah says as I tilt my head to the side, a little shocked to hear her lie to Claude. Soon, hands were on my shoulder, and I flinched away from them, because they didn't belong to Sebastian. "My lady, why don't you remove your gloves?" Claude says as he leans over me, picking up my right hand in his hand before slowly pulling my glove off. Once it was off, I grab it from him, holding it tight in my left hand so he couldn't pull off that one off as well. I turned my head to look at him, only to find his face closer to mine than I thought before his lips were pressed to mine. It felt wrong kissing another man, and I was already feeling sick, so I just about threw up on Claude, but he pulled away as if knowing something was wrong with me. I pushed myself forward before throwing up out the open window, and feel Claude holding my waist to keep me from falling over. I wanted to pull away from him, but if I did, I just might go out the window, and I wouldn't be able to land on my feet if I went out head first. He pulls me back into the room, and I push him off of me. "How dare you!" I say before slapping him with my right hand as hard as I could. He looked shocked as his glasses flew off his face, and when I pulled my hand back, there was a bright red mark there. The others were in shock as they watched me, and Hannah rushes forward before pulling me back from Claude, almost afraid of me getting hurt because of what I had done. Claude blinks before looking at me up and down, a smile on his face, before he looks over at Hannah. "Hannah, take off her other glove," Claude says as he pulls out a new pair of glasses and putting them on. Hannah grabs my left hand and starts to pull my glove off, but I make it hard for her so she can barely move it. "Please, miss, don't find it," Hannah says from behind me, and I turn so she is hit in the stomach by one of the triplets, making her let go of my hand. They were all in shock, so I take that time to jump out the window and land silently on my feet before running into the woods, not daring to stop or look behind me to see how close behind they might be. My legs were screaming in pain, but I knew that if I stopped now, then I would be taken back. If only I could get a little closer. Then I ran into someone, but don't scream at all. "Shh, it's all right, my lady," Sebastian whispers before picking me up and turning around, running with me in his arms. I relax a little, happy to be with him and away from Claude, who I know wants me and would kill to have me. Once we arrive home, he places me in a chair before looking me over. I felt dirty after Claude had touched me and kissed me. Sebastian's point of view. Celine wouldn't look me in the eyes, and I was a little worried about her. I reach up to touch her face, and she flinches away from me. "Celine?" I ask before placing my hand under her chin, forcing her to look at me. "He kissed me, and I couldn't stop him," she says before tears start to fall down her face, splashing onto my gloves. I feel anger rise through me, but I don't let it show on my face, afraid that she might break if I did. "It's all right, Celine. Come on. I'll run a bath for you and can wash all the bad things away before I make you something to eat," I say before picking her up and carrying her up to our room. I take her into the bathroom before setting her down and starting the water for her bath. Once it was full, I go to leave the room, only to feel her hands on my arm. "Please don't go," she whispers, and I nod my head before waiting for her to get in. Once I hear the sound of the water moving, I sit by the tub so she can see me. "Why does she want me, Sebastian?" she asks in a shaky voice. I was worried about her mental state, so I turned my head a little so I could look at her. "I don't know, but I'm very sorry for leaving you there with him, and should have tried harder to keep you and our child safe," I say. She holds a hand up to me and shakes her head a little. "You did the right thing by taking Seal away from there as fast as you could," she says, then gives me a half-hearted smile. It didn't take long for her to clean herself before wanting to get out. I let her change before leading her down to the kitchen and making her something to eat. Once the food was done, I pull her into my lap and feed her everything that was on the plate. I kissed her neck every once in a while to reassure myself that she really was there, and in some way gave her some small knowledge that I was there for her. "Are you still hungry, my lady?" I whisper in her ear, making her shiver a little. I pull her closer to me and wrap my arms around her to keep her warm. "I wouldn't fight with you if you made me something a little sweet," she says in a soft voice, almost like she was afraid I would say no to her. I smile a little before giving a small chuckle. "Anything you wish, my lady," I say as I stand, before putting her down gently on the chair. We were quiet as I cooked, and when I was done, I saw tears running down her face. I drop what was in my hands before running over to her, picking her up and kissing away the tears on her face. "What is wrong, my lady?" I ask, and she places a small kiss on my lips. "Nothing is wrong, love. I just got really sad all of a sudden and couldn't help but let the tears fall," she whispers, and I nod my head, not wanting to put her down, so I carry over to where the plate I dropped sat. It surprisingly hadn't broken at all, so I cut the cake I had made before putting it on the plate and carrying it and my wife over to the chair we had been sitting on not that long ago. I pick up the first bite of cake and was just about to feed it to her when there is a knock on the kitchen door. I frowned a little, and I put the fork down, putting Celine in the chair before walking over to see who is here at this time of night. I barely opened the door to see whoever was on the other side couldn't see who was in the kitchen with me. I was a little shocked to see Hannah standing there, a worried look on her face. "What are you doing here?" I snapped, not caring how it sounded to her. She looked around a little uncertain before taking a deep breath. "I wanted to tell you that Lady Celine ran from Claude, but I don't know where she is. Claude is enraged and is now looking for her as we speak." He didn't tell any of us not to tell you," Hannah says. A small blush appears on her face. "If I didn't know any better, she might have a crush on me." "I wanted to tell Celine's husband so she wouldn't worry as much about her," Hannah says. I give her a small smile. "I will inform him and create a search party to find her. Thank you for telling me this," I say, and send her away before closing the door and walking back over to Celine. She hadn't moved since I put her down, and the cake was still just the way it had been when I walked away from her. I pick her back up and put her in my lap, and she leaned her head onto my chest. "You're safe from him," I mutter into her hair and take a deep breath to catch her scent. She smelled like wildflowers and honey, which was an odd combination to me. We just sat there for a few minutes before she looks over at the cake, making me chuckle a little, then feed it to her. I chuckle a little as I watch her eat the cake quickly and soon give her another piece before she was done. I carry her up to bed, and we lay there just looking in each other's eyes until she falls asleep. Celine's point of view. When I get up the next morning, I was alone, but I didn't mind because I didn't have the energy to move. After laying there for a few minutes, Sebastian walks into the room and over to the bed. I smile a little as I watch him because he had the cute little worried face on which I really got to see. "Sebastian?" I ask in a somewhat sleepy voice, and he looks down at me, the worry disappearing quickly. He sits by me before kissing my cheek. "Everything is fine, my lady. I was just lost in thought," Sebastian says before running his fingers through my hair. I nod and try sitting up a little, but I couldn't do it. He gently pushes me back down onto the bed. "You're really weak today, and I would feel better if you spent today sleeping in bed. I was right that it was too much excitement for you yesterday," he says before placing kisses all over my face. I giggle and pull away from him a little. "Sebastian, I can't just lay here all day. That would be bad for me. I need to walk around a little," I say before sitting up, and he gives me a small frown. I end up in Steele's study after I had changed, and by the end of the day I couldn't help but cry because I knew that Alois was dead, and I shouldn't feel sorry for him, but I did. That night I had nightmares about what happened to him and what might have happened to me if I hadn't gotten away. Chapter 29, the last chapter. Sebastian's point of view. Last night I watched Celine when she didn't think I was looking. She had spent most of the night crying for no reason, and when I asked her about it, she just shook her head, telling me it was nothing, or I'd find out soon. When she finally fell asleep, she tossed and turned before giving small screams, which made me worried greatly about her. I held her close to me, and as the night went on, because she just about fell out of bed a few times. When it was time to get the young master up, I didn't want to leave her side because she had just fallen into a peaceful sleep. I leave and get him ready for the day before starting food for this morning. I would have to wait a little longer to go get Celine up. Celine's point of view. I get up and ready for the day, so Sebastian didn't have to worry over me. He would have a lot to worry over soon, so I wanted to spend as much time with Steele as I could. I walked down to the dining room to eat with Seal, but he wasn't there yet. I sigh and put a hand to my head before shaking it a little. I was about to walk to Seal's study when he walks into the room, a mad look on his face. Sebastian was right behind him, and they both freeze when they see me. Celine, I have a case in the city and want you to stay home for today. Can you do that? Seal asks as he walks over to me. I can find something here to entertain me for the day. Just come back home safe, I say before hugging him and placing a kiss on the top of his head. I forced the tears back because I had a feeling I knew what was going to happen today. Seal hugs me back and pulls my face down before placing a sweet kiss on my cheek. I give him a sad smile as he walks back over to where Sebastian was waiting for him. I walk over to Sebastian and give him a gentle kiss. Bring Seal back no matter what. I will wait here unless you need me, I whisper before he gives me a sweet and passion-filled kiss before they both disappear from the house. I walk over to a window and watch them go as the tears fall down my face. I was getting frustrated with waiting for them to come back and snapped at anyone easily. The others avoided me and ended up out in the rose garden only so I wouldn't lash out at them anymore because I wanted to be with Sebastian and keep Seal from the trancy servants. I was walking to the maze when some people from Scotland Yard showed up and head to the manor's door. I didn't listen to what they were saying, but Finny was soon by me as Bard talks to them. Celine, they want to take you away. Come hide, Finny whispers as he pulls on my arm. I led him, but then there were shots, and Finny was pulled away from me, and I was dragged away. Finny, go tell Sebastian, I scream as I struggle in their hold. I ended up in a room that looked a little familiar to me, but I just couldn't put my finger on it. Not much later, I hear gunfire and know exactly where I am. Claude did this, I hiss as I walk over to the window to see if I could find Sebastian outside. I should have known that they would try to take me away from Sebastian as well as Seal. I could hear Seal talking and Claude brainwashing him. I wanted to scream and run over to the door, hitting on it, trying to break it down, because no mere human door was going to stop me. Seal, don't! I scream as I pound on the door. I couldn't listen to all of this and needed to save Seal because I couldn't let him become a demon. I go quiet as tears fall down my face because I couldn't do a thing to save him. One of the triplets shows up and takes me away, and I could hear Sebastian down the hall, but if I made a sound now, he would lose Seal faster than he would lose me. It broke my heart to hear Seal's order to Sebastian, and the tears fell harder than before. Once we get to the Trancy Manor, I kick and bit at anyone who came close to me, almost as if the need to protect my child was driving me, or it was my grief of losing the Seal I knew and loved. Someone threw a punch at me, and I grabbed their arm before trying to break it, but ended up on the floor with blood coming from my head. Claude walks in not much later, and I was still on the floor. I flinched a little as his cold eyes fell on me, and he had Seal in his arms. The tears start to fall again, and I put my hands to my face, covering it as I cried. Seal, oh, poor Seal, I cried into my hands. Then I feel gentle hands on my shoulders. Come with me, Lady Celine. I will draw you a warm bath as well, Hannah says from behind me. I feel numb all over, so I just nod my head and follow her to the same room I was in last time. But it was a little different seeing the bars on the window. So I'm a caged bird in the spider's den, am I? I asked before giving a humorous laugh. Hannah looks away from me, and I sneer at her like Sebastian does at Claude. It doesn't matter. I will get out of here with Seal with me, I say in a strong voice, before pushing past her into the bathroom, which I locked myself in. I took a bath, but took as long as I could, knowing I wasn't going to sleep well tonight with Sebastian with me. Claude's point of view. Now I had what I wanted. I had Seal Phantomhive's soul and Celine. I couldn't wait to find out what demon had marked her, but I would enjoy killing him slowly just to have her. I was sitting on her bed, waiting for her to leave the bathroom, which she had locked herself in once Hannah had brought her up here. The bathroom door opens slowly, and when she sees me, a look of hate flashes across her face. I thought we could talk about why you were brought here, I say as I pat the seat next to me on the bed. She walks slowly over, watching me carefully like I was going to kill her. So why was I brought here? She asks in an icy voice that sends shivers down my spine. I believe that Seal would adjust to life better here if someone familiar was with him. You are the best choice because you have his best interest at heart, I say as I reach up and touch her face, making her flinch back from me. I huff a little before pulling her closer to me. You will be mine, so whatever human or demon thinks they have claim on you, forget it, I growl before picking her up and throwing her on the bed, pinning her there under me. She hisses a little, and I could have sworn her eyes flashed a different color. Get off me, Celine screams before throwing me off of her, and I was in a little shock. Don't you ever touch me. My husband will kill you for touching me, she hisses as she backs up to the wall. I put my hands in the air so she could see I wasn't a threat. Calm down, my lady. Just spend a few days here until Celia's used to his life here, then you may leave, I say, trying to get her to stay calm and agree to what I had to say. If she would stay a few days for Seal, then she would stay a few more, until she never wants to leave me. She huffs a little and looks out the window. I'm a prisoner here, and I don't like it, she finally says before walking back over to the bed and sitting on it. I'll leave you a nightgown, then leave. I'm sure you are tired after the long day you have had, I say, as I start to back out of the room. Have Hannah bring it to me. I'd rather see her and have her help me than have you anywhere near me, she hisses before looking away at me. I leave her room and was madder than words could describe. How could she do this to me? How could she treat a demon like I was another mere man? I was fuming mad, but I asked Hannah to give her a nightgown before going to check on our new young master. Celine's point of view. I didn't change the nightgown that was brought to me, and I didn't sleep at all that much either. Hannah walks in with a clean dress and has a surprised look on her face when she sees me. I can dress myself and don't need help, I say, as she walks closer to me. She puts the dress down on the bed before walking out of the room. You will be having breakfast with the young master, Hannah says before leaving. I hear the bang outside and knew deep in my heart that it was Sebastian who was losing it over seeing Claude dressing Seal, and to be honest, I didn't blame him. I look over the dress that was brought to me and scoff at it because it was too small for me to wear, and I refuse to put it on. Claude will throw a fit about this, and I could care less about it, I think, as I walk over to the door, only to see Hannah standing there. I could hear more crashes and smile a little. My, what an angry man he is. My poor husband is not very pleased, I mutter as I look Hannah over. She shivers and opens her mouth to say something, but is stopped by a call from Claude. She pulls me behind her into Seal's room, and I was glad to see that he looked just fine. Celine, where is your husband? Seal asks as he walks over to me and hugs me. I give a small sigh. He's gone for a while. Something happened that caused him to be away for a while, I say before looking away from Seal, not able to tell him that he was the reason my husband wasn't with me right now. Celine, are you feeling better? I know you were sick a few days ago, he said, still holding on to me. I gave a small sigh before leaning back over to his bed. Seal, may I sit on your bed with you? I ask, and he nods, more than happy to do as I ask. Seal, do you not remember what was wrong with me? I told you a few months ago, and I'm surprised that you don't remember, I say as I pull on my dress a little. He laughs a little, then has this face like he was deep in thought. I can't remember, so just tell me already, Seal says as he holds my hand. But Claude shows up, and I scowl at him. That's right, you don't like Claude at all, and you never did tell me why. So, Celine, will you tell me now? Seal asks, and I didn't have the heart to say no to him. Claude likes me and tried to steal me away from my love. I would very much like to go back to my husband, but I can't, I say as I smooth back his hair. He nods his head before looking at Claude, a small frown on his face as he looks at him. Claude, that isn't very nice. Celine, I'm sorry he did that to you, Seal says before looking over at me, a small smile on his face. Sebastian's point of view. I was beyond mad that they had taken both my young master and wife at the same time. I was lucky to find Grell taking pictures of me. I wasn't thinking of using him to get at least my wife I was thinking of using him to get at least my wife back because she really shouldn't be under all that stress. The thought of my wife and child getting hurt made my heart almost stop beating, and I shake my head a little. I invite Gell to tea and make him something that hurt him as much as I was. To tell the truth, it was just a way to cope with my grief over losing my wife. The way I did. Grell gives me some information that I desperately needed, and how could I use Grell to get what I wanted? I had to trick him into it. That was the only way around it all. She's mine now. Whatever demon thinks he owns her is wrong, Claude's echoing voice said which makes me enraged. I knew my anger was getting out of control, but tricked Grell into coming with me. Celine's point of view. Claude keeps me from Seal so he could take care of him, and I stay in my room like the trapped little songbird that I was. I knew that the triplets would be sent off to kill Sebastian, which at the thought made me chuckle a little, and Hannah was with Seal, meaning she was going to take pity on him and to make that deal soon. I was caught up in my thoughts, but was pulled out of them by Claude. You will tell me who your demon is, Claude says as he keeps me from leaving my chair. My demon? Whatever are you talking about, Claude? I ask in a sickly sweet voice. He blushes a little before a hate-filled look took over his face. I see. Why don't you change to the dress Hannah brought for you? He asks as he leans back. His hands were still on either side of the chair. That ugly thing? Not only was it something I would never put on, but it was too small for me to even wear, I say as I raise my hands. I was going to push this foolish man away from me. I laugh a little at the look on his face. You should be more worried about Hannah than me, Claude, I say, and he walks off with a mad look on his face, and I hear the lock of the door. That man will pay, and I can't wait for my Sebastian to kill him. Seal comes to see me at dinner, and I eat more than normal. Celine, you're acting very unladylike. A lady shouldn't stuff herself like that, Seal scolds, and I stop eating. You're right, Seal, but I can't help it. If you remember correctly, then you wouldn't scold me like that, I snap at him. I was just so mad at this whole situation. Seal walks over and slaps me, making me laugh a little. Seal, please don't hurt us, I whisper in his ear, so only he would hear me. His angry look fades as he thinks over what I just said. He was sitting in a way on my lap that no one else would see me put his hands to my stomach, so he would feel the change there. His eyes soften before he gives me a hug. I'm sorry, I forgot about such a thing. Please eat however you like, and we will have something chocolate made for later. You love to have sweets before bed now, right? Seal says as he pulls away from me. I give a small laugh, no longer hungry. I only like the sweets my husband makes, Seal. He knows just what to put in them, so they don't keep me up all night, I say with a little laugh. Not long after that, we head up to bed. I was tired after the last few days, but I had slept most of the day, so if I stayed up, it wouldn't hurt me. I was sitting on my bed when I hear Seal screaming, knowing that Hannah had just showed him Aloise's eye. I was about to lay down when I hear Sebastian's voice and jump from my bed, running down to where he was talking with Claude. I made it just in time to see him punching Claude. My lady, what brings you out here so late at night? Sebastian says as he turns a little to look at me. I give him a look that warns him not to play with me at all, and he gives a small chuckle before turning back to Claude, who is picking himself off the ground now. They are about to get in a fight, but Sebastian walks over to me, making Claude growl a little. You shouldn't touch what isn't yours, Sebastian. She is marked by a demon already, Claude says, as Sebastian pulls me into hug. My sweet lady, care to tell Claude what demon has claimed you? Sebastian says as he spins me around so my back was pressed against his chest, and I was looking at Claude. It was you, Sebastian. You claimed me, made me what I am now, and I say, letting the sentence hang in the air, teasing Claude to no end. And what? Claude asks as he looks us over. And carrying my child, Sebastian says before gently biting my neck, causing shivers to go up and down my spine. My dear lady, would you mind standing off to the side as Claude and I finish up some unfinished business that we have? Sebastian asks as he lets me go. As you wish, my love, I say before walking over to what I think is a safe place to be. I hardly listen to what they have to say, but soon they were fighting but were stopped by Seal's call. Sebastian picks me up before running over to see what was going on, and I was guessing to use me to hide behind so Seal couldn't see him. Hannah shows up behind both of them, and she looks at me with a little shock. My lord wishes you to come with me, she says, when she is done talking to Sebastian and Claude. I look at Sebastian, knowing I would be safe enough. I'll be fine, Sebastian. Seal and Alois will not hurt me. Trust me on this, I say before kissing his cheek. Of course I will. You know how things will end, and have from the beginning, Sebastian says before giving a little chuckle. It was priceless to see Hannah's and Claude's faces the moment Sebastian said that, making me glad that I would get the last laugh over them. Goodbye, Claude. Good luck, Sebastian, I say, as Hannah picked me up and took me to the top where Seal was waiting. I sat against the wall because it was a little frightening to be up this high. Seal, or should I say Alois, turns to look at me. Celine, I'm so glad that you joined me up here. Come look at them running around like rats, he says, and I stand up before taking a few shaky steps. I feel hands on my waist holding me in place, and looked over my shoulder a little to see Hannah. Why are you holding on to me? I ask her, ignoring Seal for now. Because we don't want you to get hurt. I don't really get why Seal's so adamant about it, but I asked Hannah to keep you safe from harm up here. Seal says, and I give a dry laugh. I see. So Seal does remember that I'm with child and wants to keep me safe from harm. What a sweet thing for him to do. But why would you want me safe, Alois? I say, which makes Hannah and Seal gasp. I thought you were pretty and wanted you to be my friend, or older sister. So that means you have to stay safe, away from those two, he says before he watches them in the maze. My poor Sebastian, not doing well at all. Hannah lets me go before telling Annalise to be more careful with Seal's body, making him hit her, and I wanted nothing more than to give him a spanking for acting like a spoiled child. Once he was done, he turns to look at me, a harsh look in his eyes, and I take a few steps back, not wanting him to hurt me or my child. His eyes soften a little before taking a small step to me. I'm sorry, Celine. I didn't mean to scare you, he says. I shake my head, not sure if I could really trust him. There was a crash, and I walked past Seal to look over the edge. I smiled a little, seeing Grell get hurt once again because he was taking too many liberties with my husband. I gave a small sigh before sitting down. My feet were starting to hurt a little. Seal starts to cry, Alois starts to cry, and I was getting tired of all of this, and was worried now about Seal and all of this. I watched in awe as the maze changes under us. I was glad that Seal was changing things. I smiled a little before giving a small giggle. I could hear Sebastian's response to the silly goose comment and was ignoring Alois's tantrum. As I listened to what Hannah has to say, I cried a little like I always did, and wanting nothing more than to be in my room where I could walk away, but silently cursed myself for that thought because I wouldn't be with Sebastian or married or having a child. I shake my head before wiping the tears away from my face. As soon as Seal started to talk, I feel better. That I hate Claude, I growled out, then stand quickly before looking at Alois, who was giving his little speech. They leave me outside, and I just about screamed because I was so upset with what Alois was doing with Seal's body. When Sebastian runs past me, he grabs me and pulls me into the clock tower as well. Sebastian's point of view. I was shocked to see Celine standing outside where this crazy maze could hurt her, but realized that she had been pounding on the door, trying to get in. So when I get close to her, I pull her behind me inside, so I use myself as a shield to protect her in case Hannah attacks us. I was a little shocked out to find that Alois had made a contract that involved my young master and needed Celine to be safe. Celine, I'll go back to the Phantom Hive Manor and wait for you there. Celine, Sebastian. Okay, let's try this again. Sebastian, I'll go back to the Phantom Hive Manor and wait for you there, Celine says from behind me after Hannah tells us where we are going. No, you will stay in the boat that we are taking to where we are going, Hannah says as she looks over at my wife. Celine gives a small sigh before shaking her head a little. I refuse, Celine growls out behind me, and I could feel a push of power and turned to see her eyes fuchsia, which was wonderful on her. I had never felt her release this much power, and even when I was trying to teach her how to use her powers. Claude and Hannah had taken a few steps back from her, shock clear on their faces. I, on the other hand, walked closer to her before putting a hand to her face, forcing her to look into my eyes. Celine, calm down. You'll be able to go home and wait for us there, I say, in a clear and demanding voice. She nods her head a little, but her eyes stay the same, and I could tell that she was mad about what was happening to the young master and myself. I did the one thing I knew that would make her relax, and do as I ever so gently push my lips to hers before becoming a little rough with her. The power leaking from her reduces, and I could feel something wet hit my cheeks before I pulled back from her. She was crying, and when we get on the ground, Celine was taken over to where the horses were before being put on one. I'll bring the young master home, so please don't worry too much about us, I whispered in her ear before watching her ride away. A smile on her face, but tears were still falling, with no end in sight. Seal's point of view. Sebastian wouldn't tell me what happened a few days ago, but I had been asleep when we got home. When I woke up, Celine was by me, holding me to her, and she looked like she had cried herself to sleep around me. Sebastian was a little hesitant to wake me, but when he did, we were careful not to wake Celine. Sebastian, why is Celine in my room? Why was she asleep next to me in my bed? I asked, and he chuckles a little. She was worried about her, and I couldn't get her to stop crying until I brought her in here, Sebastian says, and he takes me to take a bath. When we walk into my room, Celine was gone. They both didn't say anything about what happened, and I gave Sebastian an order to get things ready for my fake death. Celine had been helping Sebastian and myself when she could. Today, when I got up, would be the last day in the manor, and Sebastian dresses me in black, as he fixes my tea for the day. I was dancing with Elizabeth, but I hadn't seen Celine all day, which worried me a little. After a while, I end up waiting by the carriage for Celine and Sebastian, but only Sebastian showed up. Where is Celine? I ask. Sebastian gives a sly smile before putting a finger to his lips. We get in the carriage before leaving, and Sebastian and I talk. We end up in a little hotel, and I was a little confused as to why we were here. Celine is waiting for us, Sebastian says. I nod my head, and we walk up to the room where Celine was sitting in a chair by the window. Seal, how was your last day with Elizabeth? Celine asks as she looks at me, a sad smile on her face. I shake my head before walking over to her and placing a hand on her stomach that was starting to get bigger by the day. I suppose I did. Where would you like to go now, Celine? I ask as I look up into her eyes. She gives me a closed-eyed smile before looking behind her at Sebastian, who is standing there. Somewhere quiet in the New World. I want my child born in America, she says, and we both nod, wanting nothing more than to make this woman happy. Okay, so that's the end of this book. There is a second to that. So if you guys want me to read the second one, where it's Celine's kid, which, by the way, I have not read yet. I want to, but I don't know if I should. So if you guys want me to read that and have complete raw reactions, then let's do 20 likes. If I get 20 likes on this video, then I will do another Black Butler fanfiction, the second book to this. Alrighty. Peace out, Knights.